Hello and welcome to the analysis of the Hindu newspaper dated February 25th, 2023. As usual, we will talk about two important newspaper articles which are going to be very important, very significant for the civil services examination. So let's start with the first important newspaper article. Now, this particular newspaper article talks about the menstrual leave policy, and there was a petition in the Supreme Court. So this particular newspaper article talks about that particular petition. Now, these kinds of newspaper articles are important for the GS paper 1, that is Indian society / women issues, right? So let's first understand the context of it, and then we will deep dive into what is the issue regarding it. So now the Supreme Court said on Friday that there are different dimensions to menstrual pain leave, which though being a biological process may also act as a disincentive for the employers from engaging women in their establishment. So basically you all know that women go through menstrual cycle every month and this causes pain in them. This is called menstrual pain leave. So this particular petition was addressing this particular issue, right? So the Supreme Court says that it is a biological process, but at the same time it poses a disincentive for the employers, because if employers give leave to their women employees every month, then what will happen? They will prefer to hire more men who do not get to take 2 leaves per month. So the court was hearing a petition filed by Shailendra Mani Tripathi, represented by Advocate Vishal Tiwari, seeking a direction to the states to frame rules for granting menstrual pain leave for the students and working women, right? So this particular petition was all about seeking a direction to the states, or Supreme Court giving direction to the states. Supreme Court should give direction to the states to frame rules for granting menstrual pain leave. Now the Supreme Court dismissed this particular petition and it said that if you compel employers to grant menstrual pain leave, it may operate as a de facto disincentive for employers to engage women in their establishment. Though the Supreme Court says that your cause is very good, you are saying very nice things, but it poses a disincentive to the employers. Instead of coming to the Supreme Court seeking Supreme Court to give the direction to the state, you should go directly to the state. You should directly go to the Union Ministry of Women and Child Development and ask them to frame a policy regarding it. This was what Supreme Court has said. Now, who are the menstruators? Menstruators is an inclusive term, refers to individuals who have female reproductive anatomy and experience menstrual periods. We all know that women go through the menstrual periods, but apart from it, trans men also go through the menstrual period, because at the end of the day, they were biologically women before, and now they have transferred into being a man, or they have transformed themselves into the men by doing all the medical procedures. But at the end of the day, they also go through the menstrual periods, and non-binary persons as well are part of the menstruators. So this biological process also decouples menstruation from the womanhood, right? So what are the arguments in favor of this particular leave? First one is that it is a biological process and comes with a physical pain. It causes cramps, it causes nausea, back and muscle pains, it causes headaches, and that is why you should give a leave. And apart from it, we also have PCOS, which is polycystic ovary syndrome. So additionally, these can be taken debilitating form amongst menstruating people who suffer from polycystic ovary syndrome and endometriosis. What happens in the PCOS? Basically, you are not going through the menstrual cycle, but the pain is so much that the menstruating person has to suffer it, right? You get it, basically. And the third one is that, for instance, in India, 20% of the menstruators have PCOS and approximately 25 million suffer from endometriosis. Now this is a very significant number, so that is why the menstrual leave becomes very important for all these people. Now this particular leave also acknowledges the reality. So for many menstruators, it is a biological process intertwined with medical symptoms, and mandatory period leave is an affirmative action policy that acknowledges this particular reality. Now these are the arguments in favor of the leave. Now what are the arguments in against the leave? First one is the fear of the bias in hiring, which the Supreme Court has talked about. Now the major opposition to menstrual leave policy is the fear of bias in hiring due to financial cost to the employers. If they hire more women, if the leave is given and the employers have to give the 2 days leave to the employees, then what will happen? They will prefer hiring the men over the women, because men do not need the 2 day leave. Now this will lead to discrimination against the women. And second one is that this will also lead to probable decline in the women labor force participation. So it is often equated to the decline in the labor force participation of women following the introduction of the mandatory paid maternity leave, and this will leave them behind. And the third one is that medicalizing normal biological process is something very tricky, and that is why the Supreme Court has said that we are getting out of it. Now the period leave is often seen as a medicalizing and normal biological process. If this is a biological process, it is a normal biological process, then why the hell do you need a leave for it, right? So these are some of the arguments against this particular leave. Now let's talk about the leave for women in India, or the menstrual leave for menstrual pain leave for women in India. So basically this was first introduced in a state which you consider quote unquote very backward. It was introduced in the Bihar in 1992. So Bihar government in 1992 announced 2 days of menstrual leave a month. And in 2017, the union government also brought about the Menstrual Benefits Bill 2017. Now this provided for the 2 days of menstrual leave to both public and private employees during the menstruation, but this did not become the act. This particular bill did not become the act. And in 2020, Zomato introduced menstrual leaves for up to 10 days a year for its women and transgender employees. And since then, similar policies are also followed in various corporate houses like the Swiggy and the Byju's, right? Now in January 2023, in 22 January 2023, Kerala government announced that female students in all the state universities of age 18 and above is eligible to avail of 60 days of menstrual leave in a year. So this is the state of the menstrual pain leave in India. What about the global thing? Now in the global scenario, Japan was the first country to implement this particular policy of menstrual pain leave in 1947, and across the globe menstrual leave policies exist in countries like Japan, Taiwan, South Korea, China, Indonesia, Zambia, Sweden and Mexico. And Spain also tried to approve a law to introduce paid menstrual leave, but it failed and there is no menstrual pain leave in the Spain. But we can say that all these countries like Japan, Taiwan, South Korea, China, Indonesia are looking towards the menstrual pain leave, or they are having the menstrual pain leave. So India also must have a menstrual pain leave so that their women employees can function better, right? So this is it regarding this particular newspaper article. Let's now head to the next important newspaper article. Now this particular newspaper article talks about the docking of the Navy submarine in Indonesia. Navy submarine of India, right? Docking is what? Going to the port or getting up to the port. Now these kinds of newspaper articles are important for the GS paper 2, that is international relations, and GS paper 3, that is defense, right? So let's first understand the context of it and then we'll talk about this particular submarine. So in line with the expanding military cooperation with the Southeast Asian nations, an Indian Navy Kilo class conventional submarine INS Sindhu Keshari docked in Jakarta, Indonesia for the first time from February 22 to 24. Now this particular docking becomes significant. Now that if you dock your submarine in that particular region, this means that there is a increasing military cooperation with the Southeast Asian nations. Now India has steadily expanded its defense and security cooperation with countries in the region, many of which are engaged in disputes with China in the South China Sea. And in recent years, India has also signed logistic support agreements with several countries to enhance the reach of the military assets. and this is basically all done in order to counter China and as well as to counter all kinds of piracy in the seas, right? So these are some of the major pointers which we have figured out from the newspaper article. Let's now talk about this particular submarine, that is INS Sindhu Kesari. So what is Sindhu Kesari? Sindhu Kesari is basically an attack submarine. It is basically Indian Navy Kilo class conventional submarine. So what are basically attack submarines? So attack submarines are generally small submarines designed for specific tasks, which include attack on enemy in combat, and it uses torpedoes and other small range missiles. And these submarines have limited range and need to come out of water after some time, and that is why this particular submarine, that is INS Sindhu Kesari, has docked in the Indonesia, because it has limited range and it needs to come out of the water after some period of time, right? So this is it regarding the Sindhu Kesari, and this is it regarding the relations with the Southeast Asian nations in regarding the military cooperation. So this is it for this particular newspaper article, and this is it for the day. Thank you from my side. Do like and share the video and subscribe to this channel. Have a good day. Bye.